Welcome back to Section 6, Discovering the Rendering Process. In this section, we will render out and export the animation that we created in the last section. Throughout this section, we will learn about the different render settings within Blender, as well as how to save an image render. After this, we will go over how to render an animation into individual frames, and then how to stitch the frames back together as a video file. In this video, we will be going over the basic render settings within Blender and how they work. We will first learn how to render an image, and then move on to the technicalities of render settings. After this, we will then learn how to save the new rendered image. To begin this video, we are going to go to the right window and extend it out to the left. After this, we will select the Render tab. The first thing we are going to learn is how to render out an image of our scene. To do this, we are going to select the Render button. Once we've done this, we will then present an output render of our scene. To go back to the 3D viewport, we are going to move into the UV image editor and press Escape. To render out an image, we can also press F12. We can then press Escape to return. The next button is the Render Animation button. We will go over how to use this later in the section. The next option we have is the Display option. From here we can choose which display we wish to present when we render out an image. Here I'm going to select New Window. I will then press Render. I will then click Close. The next panel contains all the different things about the dimensions of our render. From here we can select different render presets for different televisions, and we can also add our own presets with the plus button. The resolution section determines the pixel output of our image. This bar at the bottom determines how much of the original resolution we want to render out. At 100%, we are rendering out the true resolution. At 50%, we are rendering out half of the original resolution. You should only set this to 100% if you are confident that the final image is ready. After this, we also have an aspect ratio, and this is related again to televisions. Next, we have the frame rate, which determines how fast the animation is being played back. And lastly, we have the frame range. Here we have a start, an end, and a frame step. The next section here is the anti-aliasing section. This smooths off the rough edges of our object. To see this working, we are going to change the percentage to 50, and then press Render with F12. After this, you can see we have a render here with anti-aliasing. Notice that the edges here are smooth. I will then turn off anti-aliasing and press Render. Here you can see that the edges of our object are a lot sharper. In this case, the pixels are a lot more defined, but they also aren't very smooth. I'm going to click Close. From here, I'm going to enable anti-aliasing with 8. After this, we are going to go down to Shading. From here, we can enable and disable different types of shading that we are using. In this case, we don't need texturing, subsurface scattering, or environment maps. By disabling the features that we aren't using, we can increase the render speed. The next option we have here is the Alpha option. Here we can choose Sky or Transparent. Depending on the situation, you may want to have the background of your character being transparent. To do this, we can select Transparent and then press F12. Here you can see that the world color is now completely transparent. We can close this and select Sky. Now if we press Render, we are presented with a gray background. The last section we are going to look at is the Output section. Here I'm going to minimize shading, anti-aliasing, and dimensions. Within the Output section, we are presented with an output file. From here we can determine where we want our rendered frames to end up. This output is used when we render out an animation. Here under PNG we have black and white, red, green, blue alpha, and then also a color depth and compression. Again, if we select another type, for example JPEG, we then have different options. Again from here, I'm going to change it back to PNG. The last thing we are going to look at is how to save a rendered image. To do this, I'm going to press F12 to render out my image. Then I'm going to go down to Image and choose Save as Image. From here we can choose an appropriate location, change the name, change the settings, and then click Save. We have now saved our image. Here I'm going to close it and then press Ctrl S to save all of my blend file settings.